a breakfast, hot breakfast that's being served afterwards. So that is also going to be coming out. All right, those that are at the back, are you comfortable? You don't want to come and get a seat at a table? Those of you that are still standing, you sure you don't want to come? I can see some of you standing at bar tables, and it's a long program, so if you want to take a seat, you're more than welcome to take a seat, please. All right, okay, I'm going to start, and I'm sure you're all going to make your way to wherever you are comfortable with. Ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good morning to you. My name is Leanne Manus. I'm going to be the program director for this morning, and I must say it was quite nice to know that I was going to be coming down to Cape Town to chat about all things transport after our maiden delivery from the Minister of her budget speech. And this, of course, was for 2023. There's so much that needs to be done in the transport sector. It's sort of a sector that needs somebody that is energetic, somebody that has great ideas, and somebody that certainly needs to hit the floor running. And that we do hope is what the Minister has got for us. I mean, certainly from my brief interactions with her, she seems to be that kind of individual who really is rolling up her sleeves and getting working at that. Again, I think the big promise is to get the rails going. That is probably one of the biggest issues that faces this country. There are many when we talk about transport, but I think rail is the one that was entirely focused yesterday in a very, very big way. Although we are going to be having representatives today from all of the different sectors, so we're going to be calling a panel up here, and this really I want it to be a very interactive session. This is where you are going to be granted access to the Minister and to those panelists that'll be coming up. And I'm talking about the CEO of the major organizations that fall under the Department of Transport. So they are here, they are ready to answer the questions, and we want those questions to come through. So, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, I'm not going to get into the protocol, because if I do, then I'm going to be speaking until the end with all the protocol. But I certainly do want to welcome the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the DG, and all of the CEOs, as well as our valued guests that have joined us for this beautiful venue. Is this not a stunning venue? This venue apparently was one of the first branches of Standard Bank. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Minister, did you know that? I didn't know that. But anyway, I'm learning things as I go along. And I'm learning this in Cape Town before the sun's even risen. That's what I love about Cape Town. You can learn a lot before the sun rises, because the sun doesn't ever seem to rise. It wakes up when it wants to. So that's a good thing. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't think we've got an actual person who's giving us a safety briefing that I know of, but all you need to know is that the bathrooms are over there. That, of course, is the exit as you came in over there as well. So in case of any emergency, please use the exit that is over there next to the breakfast. So grab a roll on the way out. So that's always a nice thing, the fact that the exit's next to the food, and the bathrooms, as I say, behind me. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to give us some opening remarks from her budget yesterday. Please welcome to the podium our Transport Minister, Ms. Sindisiwe Chikunga.
Thank you very much, Program Director Leanne, Deputy Minister Lisa Mangcu, MEC Nomandla Bloom from Northern Cape, responsible for transport, chairpersons and CEOs of transport entities, as well as private and public entities, of course, chiefs and captains of the transport industry, editors of various media houses and journalists present, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this media breakfast, where we're going to see our panel presenting to all of us what we will be doing this financial year. But most importantly is to acknowledge and appreciate members of the media for honoring our invitation. We thank you for partnering with us in ensuring that people of South Africa are kept informed about the Transport National Agenda. Today's session is taking place some few days after South African government, together with our media, celebrated World Press Freedom Day on the 3rd of May 2023, under the theme, Shaping a Future of Rights, Freedom of Expression as a Driver for Human Rights. Our support for media freedom in South Africa and the world was expressed through our Government Communication Information and System, GCIS. It stated that GCIS, in a statement, GCIS said, and I quote, "Government reaffirms its commitment to uphold the right to freedom of expression and independence of our media as enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights," unquote. The government joined our media in commemorating the World Press Freedom Day because we believe in the freedom of the media. We also know the pivotal and critical role you play in society and the world. Without any shade of doubt, your role as informers, educators, spreaders, and feeders of information to our people cannot be ignored at all. Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, the Department of Transport tables its policy budget vote 40 in the National Assembly. Hence, we have invited you as members of the Fourth Estate to share critical aspects of the budget and big projects to be implemented under this financial year. As the Department of Transport, we have 12 state-owned and public entities under our belt. Our entities are very critical as they are the primary implementers of policy and programs for the sector, hence so much of our budget is transferred to them. Today, we have created an opportunity to have our departmental executive management led by the Director General Advocate James Mlawu, as well as our chief executive officers of our entities to unpack the work we are committed to deliver on this financial year. Now you have in front of you the team transport, that is our A-team, to share with you and South Africans the tangible planned programs for the sector. The main focus areas for the Minister of Transport in this financial year include our roads, rail, public transport, and of course, any infrastructure-related projects. That will be even in entities that have anything to do with infrastructure. And of course, critical policy and legislations, which we believe will progressively accelerate our work. For the year under review, our total transfers and subsidies account for approximately 98% of the department expenditure to the tune of 77.9 billion rand in the 2023-2024 financial year. Of course, as I indicated last year, our total budget is 79.5 billion rand. Of this, for 77 billion rand that will transfer to our public entities, we transfer 47.2 billion rands, and of course the 30.2 billion rand is transferred to other spheres of government, in particular provincial governments. We believe the allocated budget will help us in rolling out, amongst others, our massive roads, rail network, public transport, and rural bridges programs, amongst others. Out of this budget, we want to highlight few massive projects that members of the media should take note of. In the 2023-2024 financial year, we have budgeted 42.6 billion rand to fund efforts to construct, upgrade, and maintain the national and provincial road networks. To this end, we have allocated 25.4 billion rand to the South African National Road Agency Limited, which is SANRAL. Of this allocation, 15.8 billion rand is to strengthen our upgrading the national non-toll network. I have, as part of the panelist, the SANRAL CEO, and he will further unpack our mega projects, which we'll be focusing on this financial year. In rail, last financial year, we committed to recover 10 priority corridors, and we delivered 13. This financial year, we plan to recover 16 because rail is still the cheapest and most preferred mode of transport by many of our people. We have budgeted 20.5 billion rand for PRASA this financial year. The Group CEO of PRASA is also here with us and will further tell us what our critical projects are, which are aimed at ensuring that our work to rebuild commuter rail continues in earnest. Our work towards delivering a public transport system that meets the need of our people continues. Quite a substantial part of our budget will be spent in ensuring that our public transport programs, from taxis, buses, right to our integrated public transport networks, receive the much needed attention. We have the Director General Advocate Mlau, together with the Deputy Director General, Mr. Matabata. We agreed that I don't pronounce the surname, who will drill down the primary details of what is planned for our public transport space. I hope we are all aware how much COVID-19 pandemic affected our aviation sector, almost to a standstill. We acknowledge the tenacity of our CEOs, boards, and staff in ensuring that even during the difficult times, they stayed the course. We have registered quite significant positive economic recovery in the sector and are still striving towards registering progress. AXA forecasts a passenger growth of 25.2% in 2023-24 and an increase in air transport movement of 17.3%, growing from 11.7% year on year. Their revenue is expected to increase to 5.7 billion rand in 2023-24. Amongst the panelists, we have our aviation CEO, Ms. Mpumi Mpofu for AXA, and of course, Ms. Nozipho Mndawe for ATNS. The AXA CEO will tell us in detail about AXA's Airports Company South Africa's Recover and Sustain strategy, which include AXA assuming an active role to support provincial airports and investing in specialized airports and taking advantage of emerging opportunities brought about by technology in moving freight. The air and moving air freight, of course. The Air Traffic Navigation Services Company maintains its focus on providing safe, efficient, and cost-effective air traffic management solutions and related services, with, of course, the bulk of its budget expected to be used in communication, surveillance, and simulator systems. Its total revenue is expected to increase from 1.3 billion rand in 2022-23 to 1.9 billion rand during the financial year. CEO ATNS, Ms. Mndawe, will share with us the ATNS domestic and international strategic joint venture opportunities through their communication and navigation product offerings, that is air traffic navigation services. Program Director, we equally have CEOs and executive DDGs and managers who, if asked, will cover a range of programs that we are focusing on for this financial year, including maritime and road freight and road safety. Among these include the Cross-Border Road Traffic Agency dealing with Linking Africa Plan and freight matters. We also have CEOs focusing on issues of traffic management and road safety matters. We therefore have among us a CEO, Collins Litswalo of Road Accident Fund, Advocate Msibi of Road Traffic Management Corporation, a CEO, Mr. Moloi of RTIA, Road Traffic Infringement Agency. I must emphasize that we are bolstering our efforts to arrest the carnage on our roads. As South Africa, we are part of National Global Road Safety Commemoration Week. International, as a matter of fact, where as countries of the world, we pause to reflect and showcase our efforts in dealing with carnage on our roads. We are now in the second decade for road safety, which is 2021-2030. As South Africa, we are intensifying our 365 days road safety program to ensure that our roads are safe. We do plead with all South Africans and our tourists to observe the rules of the road. Human factor accounted, for instance, 96% of the causal factors of accidents in our roads during the 2023 Easter weekend. Program Director, as I sit down, this is Team Transport. And today we are here to tell our nation what we intend to deliver as the transport sector. Sleeves are up, boots are on the ground, work is shovel ready, and we are here to serve and deliver for our people. I thank you very much.
Minister, thank you very, very much, and thank you for just laying the groundwork for us in terms of what we are hoping to cover today in terms of the different sectors, the role they play, and some of the critical issues that need to be addressed in the transport sector. Well, as you heard from the Minister, we're very, very lucky to have with us the CEOs of those major entities with us today. So I'm going to call them up one by one, and we can just have them seated on stage for ease of access, just to get some questions to them. Not everybody can fit onto the stage, so we're going to ask one or two to stay at the table, and we'll bring roving mics. So if there are questions that do come, they will be able to answer those as well. So, Minister, if I may ask you to lead the charge up onto the stage, grab a chair here. So that'll be our Minister on stage with us. I believe that the Deputy Minister isn't with us this morning. He hasn't arrived. So if he does at any time, we'll certainly bring him up as well, and we'll put him onto the podium as well. Other than the Deputy Minister and the Minister, I'd like to welcome the Director General, Advocate James Mlawu, if you will please come up onto the podium as well. Thank you very, very much, DG. With us this morning, we've got the CEO of SANRAL. So I got a feeling he's going to be a very busy man answering questions this morning. Mr. Reginald Demana, if you can make your way up from SANRAL. Thank you very much, CEO. Also, we've got the CEO of AXA, Ms. Mpumi Mpofu. Lovely to see you. Thank you. Come on up. All right, that's our CEO of AXA. And we've also got the Group CEO of PRASA with us today. Another busy man, Mr. Hisham Emran. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for being with us. I'm going to ask the CEO of ATNS, who is with us as well, Ms. Mozipho Mdawe, if we can just stay at the table at the moment. Ms. Mdawe, is she? There we are. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see you there. I'll ask you to stay there. If there are any questions that do come to you, which I know they will, we'll bring you a roving mic. Thank you. Thanks so much. And as I said, the Deputy Minister not with us at the moment, but if in fact he does come, we'll get into that. So I want to start off very quickly, and I think it's only fair at this point that if I may give each one of our panelists, I'm just going to try and move over here. Can I move the mic? No, I can't, but I can tilt the podium. There we go. I'm going to ask each one of our panelists, and I'm going to also come to the CEO of ATNS at the table. I want to get really a very quick 2-minute opening from you. 2 minutes. You know what 2 minutes look like? Okay. Yeah, I know. Some of us forget timing. So a very quick, from your perspective, in terms of the budget, the allocations, the issues that were brought up by the Minister, your role and function in all of this. Perhaps I'd get a starting point from each one of you, and then we'll delve into a couple of the questions. So you got the mic? Let's go. Let's begin off there, CEO. Yeah, it's ready for you. Okay, there we go.
Thank you so much, Leanne, and good morning to everyone. Good morning to the Minister again, DG, and all the dignitaries. My name is Hisham Emran, Group CEO of PRASA. The budget speech yesterday was very clear, and the message was very clear to all of us. The team at PRASA has heard the message from the Minister. We've got an allocation of 20.5 billion coming towards PRASA. This is going to, in the main, focus on our rolling stock renewal program. Many of you would have seen our brand new blue trains that are running on many of the corridors, and I'll touch on some of that a bit later. Also, our signaling program will be a priority this year in terms of the allocations that we have received. And then certainly, the corridor recovery program. The Minister emphasized the importance of rail, what it does not only for our commuters, the direct impact on their pocket, but for the country as a whole. Minister made it clear, transport is the heartbeat of the country. And the economy will only grow if we've got a well-functioning transport system. Minister, we have heard you clearly. Together with the allocation, there needs to be a greater sense of urgency, more commitment, and speed in terms of turning the rail system around. PRASA is committed to continue with the positive achievements that we have done in the past financial year, and I'm hoping Program Director will get some opportunity to take you through some of those achievements, which has been significant. I do, though, just want to mention one aspect related specifically to the budget at this point in time. 20.5 billion is a huge undertaking. It's a responsibility that is given to PRASA. We take it seriously. Minister and colleagues, members of the audience, in the past financial year, we have now demonstrated at PRASA the ability to implement our capital program. For the first time in more than a decade, we have successfully spent and executed our capital program. We had a budget of 12.5 billion rand last year, and this is to deal with the modernization and recovery, and we successfully executed it. In fact, we exceeded. We ended up having spent 13.5 billion. And that is significant in terms of turning rail around and reviving the rail industry in the country. So, Minister, the commitment is there, and we look forward to the challenges laying ahead. Thank you.
I'm going to hang on to that if that's okay, and then I'll pass it around as well. AXA, let's go. Ms. Mpofu, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, and good morning to the Minister, the audience here with us, and the audience at home, the viewers. From Airports Company South Africa, I'd just like to emphasize the elements that the Minister referred to. Very simply put, we have recovered from COVID, and our recovery is clearly indicated in our performance. We are currently at 76%, we closed the year at 76% of recovery. But by implication, we have achieved in that financial year that closed more than 15.8 million passengers in South Africa. That's a sterling performance given where we're coming from, the impact of COVID. But importantly, we are also driven by very clear strategic outlook to recover airports, grow our footprint, and ensure that we ensure air transport services to all South Africans. Our strategy of recover and sustain relates to running airports, developing airports, and growing the footprint. And whilst we were under COVID and with muted traffic, our emphasis was on improving efficiency of operation in the first 5 years. The second, which is developing airports, will include us extending our airport infrastructure, which basically has been muted up till now. And that will be facilitated by the economic regulation permission that allows us to invest to the extent of 21 billion in new infrastructure, expansion of terminals, of apron stands, of runways, and all the infrastructure that's going to be needed to cater for the traffic growth that we've seen. Happy to indicate that we've seen the traffic driven largely by international airlines that have grown significantly. We have new routes that have been established. We've got frequencies that have been increased. And by definition, we basically will be able to recover fully from COVID in 2025. What is also important is the minister related to our third pillar strategy, which is growing our footprint. We're in the process of negotiating and finalizing arrangements to manage other airports in addition to the 9 legislated AXA airports. These include already under our control, Vanderboom in Tshwane, Richards Bay in Mhlathuze, and we're currently negotiating several others of the significant regional airports of Polokwane, Mthatha, etc., which basically will then come under our wing. We have management arrangements with those airport owners, provincial governments, but this is really to ensure that South Africans are offered the same standard of airport services that they are used to at our AXA airports in the others. Importantly as well, we've developed a growth strategy which indicates significant growth and diversifying our revenues. We're moving towards the implementation in the next 5 years of Aerotropolis in what we call the Golden Triangle. And the Golden Triangle constitutes of Capetown, King Shaka, and OR Tambo. In the other airports, we have extensive interest in the development of airport cities, and I could mention new exciting development you will see in Uppington, in George, and in Bramfisher in Bloemfontein. So that program really is going to see expansion of air transport services. We are fully recovered. We've had challenges, as most will know, in our airline industry, particularly domestically, but we've seen that stabilize with engagements with South African Airways that indicate that even they are now going to double their capacity in several areas and have new international routes as well established. So this particular budget speech marks the beginning of a new era for us, an era of growth, of full recovery, but re-establishing air transport services, particularly to support tourism. Finally, on the cargo side, we've seen exponential growth of cargo during the COVID period, and that has led us to identify an important strategic intervention with respect to cargo across the country in supporting this phenomenal growth. But importantly, we link that to the potential that is presented to us by the African Continental Free Trade Area to position South Africa as the main hub for cargo growth, relying on our very extensive manufacturing base, which comparatively in the African continent is second to none. Thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you very, very much for that. Minister, I'm going to skip you. You've spoken. We're going to have lots of questions coming to you. So, DG, let me come to you.
Thank you very much. Morning, Program Director. Morning, ladies and gentlemen, Minister. Morning. No, mine is very brief, is to simply indicate the end that at the back of what we have to do as a department in support of the Minister's vision as articulated, we have to, as a department, accelerate our ability to support our entities. You would have noticed that in the budget speech, the Minister announced that we are finalizing, and in fact, in front of the NCOP, we have got the Economic Regulator Bill. Because at the heart of the work we do, we have to look at transport as an enabler within our economy. And at the heart of that is the need to regulate. And so we hope that that work will be finalized and will actually enable our country to achieve the efficiencies that we need in our aviation and ports, even in the tariffs we set for our road transport regulation, including public transport. So our posture will be to enable, you see, between the department and its entities, there are in fact boards, there's policy, there's legislation. So our sense really would be to speed that up, as you would have noticed that the posture of the budget speech was to indicate concrete deliverables and urgency. So largely that would be really the position we take as a department. Thank you very much, dear.
Thank you very much, DG. Let's move now on to the issue of SANRAL and our CEO. Let's get a reaction from you.
Yeah, good morning, Program Director, Honorable Minister, fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen. At SANRAL, we run a very simple business of just building and maintaining roads. But to put these roads into context, it is the 10th longest network in the world. It is the 19th longest paved in the world. So it is a significant network that we have. It also carries 38% of all vehicle traffic in South Africa and currently carries 70% of freight. So it is a significant responsibility. And I think in response to that, we continue to get about 60% of budget allocation on roads, which is in response to the need to maintain that network and to keep it in good condition. 15.8 billion rand of the 25 billion is allocated to capital projects, so that is strengthening and upgrading the national road system. Of course, that also responds to one of the articles that mentioned that we are facing a financial cliff. We are actually far from that. We continue to get very strong allocations from government. In addition to that, our toll portfolio continues to be self-funding. If you isolate the e-tolls, which government will settle the debt for, compliance on e-toll is 100%. So we are in a very stable and sound financial basis. I think one of the other things we want to mention is we prioritize maintenance at all times. Our budget around maintenance across the network is 10 billion a year. And we're consistent about that, and we spend that all the time. We have accelerated the pace at which we are awarding contracts after a few hiccups in the last couple of months, about 12, 18 months, related to regulatory uncertainties in the country. Last year, by way of example, in the financial year that just ended, we awarded 51 billion rand relative to about 22 billion rand in the financial year 2021-2022. So this is a significant increase, as you can see, almost double the amount that we did. So the pace is accelerating, and as the minister said, we like to see boots on the ground. We have shovel-ready projects, and we are keen to get those going so that we can move the economy forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO. I never heard pothole coming from your mouth, but I'm going to bring that later. Okay, I'm going to bring the pothole in. Let me come to ATNS. I'm going to walk to you. Let's look at your opening remarks.
Thank you so much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to the Minister, the DJ, Advocate Mlau, and the audience. Thank you so much for the opportunity. ATNS plays a very important role. Our responsibility is to manage the air space. And how we manage it, we use various infrastructure to manage the airspace, both communication as well as surveillance, including the navigation infrastructure. In the past years, we've been able to invest significantly on those three areas of investments. But let me focus on what we are planning to do and how we've recovered from COVID. We have significantly recovered from COVID, and we've recovered quite well. Our recovery compared to 2019 has been more than 80% in terms of the revenue generation. In terms of our performance as well, the movement, air traffic movement, there's been great and a positive trajectory in terms of the movement of air traffic. We have seen as well a number of opportunities for us to really work together with various institutions and ensuring that we're able to work together in ensuring that we are able to recover even beyond the plans that we had. If I talk about our strategy, in 2019, we developed our strategy, the 2025 strategy, and our numbers were beyond what we are currently performing at. And the plan is also to ensure that we achieve beyond that. As I said, we're more than 80% in terms of our revenue recovery, but we're also looking at our actual opportunities of both regulated and non-regulated business. Our focus in the domestic market, which is again above 67% of our domestic market, we are ensuring that the services that we are rendering in terms of the domestic market, we increase the focus on that. Because of the period of COVID, we have not been able to invest the infrastructure that we needed to invest at the time. So we are now catching up in terms of that. Lastly, we are also focusing on ensuring that in this financial year, we're able to increase our numbers in terms of personnel, improve the training and development of our personnel, and ensure that we've got all the required ATCs, air traffic controllers, in the space where we operate. Our focus is also on the continent, where we have already have presence in 28 countries for our VSAT. And also, we also deploy VSAT as our communication system. We also deploy NAFISAT, which is also our communication system in 14 countries. So we'll continue to deploy that. Our focus in terms of the business, we do technical services. We provide that over the country, within the continent. We provide training within the continent and beyond. We also provide technological solutions also beyond the country, within the country as well. So our focus is purely on that. We are focusing on establishing our subsidiary, which will help us to ensure that our non-regulated business grows, but also ensuring that we are able to expand our services, particularly with training and development within the continent as well as outside of the continent. Furthermore, our strategy, one of the pillars that is quite important is sustainability, financial sustainability. The non-regulated business is going to help us to ensure that we're able to sustain our business. We're able to also invest in the requirements that we have in the SADC and also in East Africa, as well as in IGAD, which is Northeast Africa. We're also working closely with service providers, our providers of technological solutions, in ensuring that they are able to deploy the solutions together with creating capacity for South Africa to be able to develop those technologies within the continent as well, not only to deploy the solutions outside, but also be able to deploy or develop the solutions within the continent. So we're working on that. Thank you.
All right, there we go. We've met, I'll come and pick that up. Oh, there we go, thank you. We've met our CEOs. These are the panelists that we've got here. So questions that you have got can be directed to any one of them. I'm going to kick off with a couple of questions. And I suppose the first question I'm going to be posing is to the Minister. And Minister, we talk about a lot of money. We really do. I mean, a massive budget, 42.6 billion is what we're talking about. For this financial year. But at the end of the day, it's well and good. We're all sitting in this room, in this beautiful room, and having a breakfast, and we got here in our cars and everything went kind of smoothly, I hope, for most of us, or the majority of us. But for those rest of these South Africans that are outside trying to get to work, trying to earn a living, trying to get transport, and trying to navigate through all of the difficulties that we have got going in this country, and there are a list of them, and we can't deny that. What does this mean for the average South African? Let's talk through your budget and what you honestly believe is going to change in the lives of South Africans. That's the important question I think we need to kick this panel off with. Minister, I'll give that to you if you want to grab a mic in front of you. Minister, grab the mic. There we go.
No, thank you very much, Leanne. It means a lot, but not everything. For instance, if you talk about rail, and I'm referring to rail because I was in one of the trains, in fact 2 times, in one of the trains that in the corridors that we have recovered. Practically, you talk to people in there. Somebody says, I was paying 1,000 rand for transport between Nyanga and the next station. And now I'm paying 175. Practically what that means is that this person is saving something like 800 rand. So that money is in her pocket. The other one says, I'm sitting and talking to this one. She says to me, I paid 8 rand for the ticket. So I had 10 rand, I paid 8 rand, and I've been able to buy an apple with the 2 rand change. And she's eating that apple because she didn't have anything to eat in the morning. Practically, it's this person. It's the same thing with the other one saying I was paying 640 per month. I'm now paying 140 rand per month. That's the savings. And that is why we are saying to PRASA, do ensure that we recover those corridors because they mean so much. That is why we're saying to anyone who must support us in order for us to be able to do our work, assist us so that we're able to recover, for instance, the central line in the Western Cape, so that those people that have actually built their houses on the central line, on the reserves or rail reserves can actually be removed so that we then recover that land because it means so much for the Khayelitsha people, for the Philippi people. That is what it means for the ordinary South African. But it also means for PRASA, for SANRAL, it means that we'll be able to move economy, practically speaking. I was just joking saying, other people talk about the economy that they fantasize. In the Department of Transport, we see the economy being moved through trucks. And if there is anything that is blocking the movement, you literally block the movement of the economy. And that is why it is important for us to say to SANRAL, your good roads must be good. And it should not be that at any stage their good roads then are not good. And that is the message. Because through that, somebody is assured of employment as those goods are moved on our roads. Of course, we're concerned about the number of trucks on our roads. However, as they are being moved, the ordinary person, then of course we'll have a challenge with the potholes that you've referred to, Leanne. they affect not only ordinary, all of us, we get affected. Sometimes you have to change tires almost every week, and sometimes you think, you sometimes feel like not even reporting it to the next person, because it's like, but you're too careless. But it's the situation of the roads. And that is our focus. We are definitely going to be focusing on that with the legal resources that we have. Because as a matter of fact, if we were to deal correctly with the state of our roads that have reached their design life, the 79 billion rand will have just to go there. 79 and nothing else. But we then have something like 13 billion rand or so, which has to be shared between the 9 provinces. And each province has to attend to maintain and rehabilitate its own road. But of course, we will be there to look at how best can we assist. And Leanne, one, as I close, we in the main talk about the patching of potholes, which, as a matter of fact, suggests that we're talking about the paved roads, the tarred roads, which only account for 159,000 kilometers, and that is 21%. We have got the 591,000 kilometer road network, that is gravel. That itself needs to be maintained. It's provincial roads that connect city towns to towns, that connects South Africa to heritage sites, that can actually, if they are good, can help us to grow the tourism and therefore the economy. So we've got all these things that we need to attend to. And we are saying, working together with provinces, with municipalities, we can do something better. But of course, bringing on board the private sector, because some of the roads are bad because of the traffic of heavy vehicles on some of the roads that were never meant for that. Corridor between Carolina and Hendrina, Carolina and Brighton was never, that road is never meant for the heavy traffic that is there. And we think that the mining companies there should assist us to maintain that road. And we are therefore going to actually be facilitating and actually be communicating and negotiating with them to say how best can we deal with these issues. Some of them are indicating interest in that, and we think that it can actually help us. Thank you very much.
And so love the way that you've addressed these issues, because they are exceptionally important issues. And again, the highlight comes to our two tail enders here, the CEOs of these entities. And let's start with rail, because our rail system is a disaster. Let's call it like it is. I mean, I'm not holding back punches here, and I'm speaking like a normal South African. I'm not speaking on big terms, because the amount of trucks that are on the roads shouldn't be on the roads. The goods that are being transported on the roads should not be transported on the roads. They should be on rail. And we know this, but when you look at the rail infrastructure, you look at the fact that it has deteriorated. I remember staying somewhere, I think it was I don't know where I was, I think it was in Mozambique, and I woke up to the sound of a train. And I was like, what is that? And it was a train. I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't heard a train in so long. And that is a problem. It is a major problem. There's a big responsibility on your shoulder going forward with this budget, getting a lot of the money, obviously, that is going to be sent into your direction. And as you heard the minister, this is a big thing. Talk to us about the exact steps that you are taking right now to alleviate the pressures on our roads, to get that rail system going. We're missing huge opportunities. Coal supplies. Coal shouldn't be on our roads. This should be on trains. But let's get a microphone to you, because I don't want to give you too much of a lecture without you having a microphone. That's not fair. But CEO, let's talk about this. I mean, where are you starting today? You've got the money. Now you can't tell us you don't have money. You've been given money. Where are you starting first?
Thank you, Leanne. And maybe just a upfront. I'm here for passenger rail. So, but I take your point about the freight also moving to rail. I think it's a critical point.
It is, and people,
yeah,
and people's livelihoods.
Absolutely.
It all works together.
So, I mean, and I mean, I wouldn't want to comment on someone else's responsibility. But I think your opening remarks, I think, is appreciated. You said rail is a disaster. And one acknowledges that we've come out of a very difficult period. I think particularly from a passenger rail point of view, coming out of the COVID era as well, we had no corridors running. Before that, we had 40 rail corridors up and running. We have been putting in a lot of effort in terms of rebuilding and recovering the rail system. And Leanne, I think it would be great if we start sharing, and this is from a PRASA point of view, but personalities like yourself, to start demonstrating that progress that we have made at rail. Just in the last year, as the Minister has indicated, we have recovered 13 corridors. We're sitting now at approximately 19 of those 40 corridors. And we'd like to invite you on some of these corridors. Just the other day, we had the Minister on the Belleville to Eerste Rivier. There is a sense of hope at the moment. And I think that is critical in terms of recovering the rail system. We are no longer at that point of things is a disaster or there's no hope around this. We are now fully in the recovery program. And having said that, there is a lot more work that we need to do. And what we will be focusing on as the team, based on this budget that has been allocated to PRASA, is number one, the 16 corridors that the Minister has alluded to. We will be working on all of those corridors. And the amount of work that goes into recovering a rail corridor, I think also needs to be appreciated. This is not something you bring back overnight. You need to recover the full electrical infrastructure. Your overhead network has been impacted by theft and vandalism. You need to rebuild that. We've got 2,300 kilometers of rail network. More than 50% of that was impacted by theft and vandalism. Just last year, just on the electrical infrastructure, we had to invest 2 billion to bring that back. We run electric trains on passenger rail. If we don't have that traction power, we cannot run trains, the commuter trains. Then we're relying on diesel. So bringing back these 16 corridors, recovering the stations on these corridors, as well as dealing with the perway, your tracks itself. It's been impacted by theft and vandalism. That is where a bulk of this capital allocation of the 20.5, we've been given 12.9 billion for the capital projects. The other 7.5 is for operational. So that is one of the key focuses, bringing back the 16 corridors. But over and above that, ladies and gentlemen, we are still focusing on those corridors that we have already recovered. Because we need to acknowledge that the current service we are running, even on those corridors, is not sufficient to meet our demand out there. At the moment, we are running a limited service. We are running a service, one train every 45 minutes to 1 hour in the peak period. That is not good enough. And we recognize that. A rail system, in the peak, you need to be running a train every 10 or 5 minutes. For those of us that's quite familiar with the rail system. And the reason we are not doing that at the moment is we need to recover our signaling system. At the moment, many of our corridors is under manual authorization because the signaling system has also suffered from theft and vandalism. That's a program that's got high priority. In addition to the 16 corridors, we want to start running higher frequency on the existing corridors. Our passenger numbers, and I just want to share this with you. In 2014, 2015, and I think this is where it's understood where those comments come, we are nowhere near where we should be. 2014, 2015, we were transporting close to 600 million passengers per annum. The year that we've just finished now, March 2023, we transported 15. You can see the impact of this devastation on the rail network. Therefore, it's becoming critical to recover those additional corridors, but also recovering the service back to high frequency. And that's a signaling system that we are rolling out. That's going to take us, the Minister's putting us under significant pressure on that one to deliver. We are looking at 12 to 18 months. Some corridors we're bringing back already before that. We need to bring it back earlier. And that's a commitment we have given the Minister. Over and above that, we are now manufacturing new trains in South Africa. And this is such a positive story for the country. We are not importing trains from overseas. We are manufacturing trains in this country, brand new trains. The blue trains that you see running on some of our lines are being manufactured in the factory in Gauteng, in Nigel. We've already received 140 of those new trains. The order is for 600 of those new trains. We also want to see how we expand beyond that, beyond this contract. A significant program, an investment from government of over 60 billion rand in new trains. And this goes back to, I think, and I'll end off with this point, Leanne, is that, yes, we have got a huge captive market, predominantly the marginalized communities that rely heavily on rail. We've seen the impact it makes to the pocket from a cost point of view. I'll give another example, Minister, just quickly. The Naledi train, Naledi to Johannesburg. From Naledi to Johannesburg and back, a return ticket is 17 rand. From Soweto to Johannesburg and back, 17 rand. And you ask yourself, what is the cost of 1 liter of petrol? It's more expensive than getting you from Naledi to Johannesburg and back, 1 liter of petrol. So this is the impact that rail has for our commuters. Now, with this modernization program, with the new trains, the new signaling technology, upgrading our stations, all of this is targeted at, yes, providing a better service for that captive market that we have, but also to bring new passengers onto the network. Many of us in the room must be able to leave our car at the station and jump on the train getting to our destination. And that's part of the strategy that we've got forward in this period now with the allocation, not all just in this year, but it's about recovering and modernizing the rail network to cater for both markets. Thank you.
So CEO, and please media, is there anybody that has a question at the stage? If you do, Abra, I can see my colleague, you see? SABC colleagues would come. There's a question here. I'm going to get a microphone to you. If we have got a spare one, we can just start sending, but I'll get it. There we go. CEO, I'm going to just follow up with you. I mean, let's talk about this rail infrastructure, though. I mean, I was, while you were chatting, looking at a couple of photographs of some, I just took one area in Roodepoort, Johannesburg. They went through an entire sort of photograph journey of the stations that used to service people. And you talk about one individual who used to spend 180 rand a month to catch a train, now spends 100 rand a day to catch a taxi. She used to catch a train at 5 o'clock, so she could get a few minutes extra to sleep in, and the 5 o'clock train would get her to a destination. She now wakes up at 3 o'clock to get 3 or 4 different taxis to get to her work destination. What this does to the psyche of South Africans is at the heart of all of it. But when you look around at the state of these rail stations that passengers used to get, there's no network. Everything has been stolen. It's been ripped apart. You know, where do you even begin to try and rebuild one station where there actually is nothing there? We may be making trains here, but there's nothing for the train to go on. And this is the problem. And once you do, how do you protect these stations? How do you ensure that that vandalism is not going to happen again with all the money spent on rectifying that?
Very good question, Leanne. And just as a matter of interest, the corridor you're referring to is one of the 16 that we will be working on in this financial year. Now, and you're quite correct. It's that corridor and many other corridors. If you look at just the devastation that we have on it, from the rail infrastructure itself to your stations, it's been completely stripped, vandalized. And you are quite correct with this huge investment that we are doing in terms of recovering the rail. We need to have for lack of a better word, a solid security plan and strategy in place. And that is what we are doing. We have now developed an integrated security plan to go along with our corridor recovery program. It's basically a two-phased approach that we have dealt with. Number one, we've started off with increasing the physical presence on security, boots on the ground, so to speak. We've increased that significantly. And we focused on these corridors that we have recovered. We have seen significant improvement in terms of the protection of our assets. The Mabopane corridor that we opened a year ago, since we've deployed the new security strategy, we've had virtually 0 incidents of theft on that corridor. So the issue of the physical presence is only the first part of this strategy. I must hasten to add, it's not a normal boots on the ground security response. If you go to some of our corridors, depending on the threat that we have on the corridors, because some of them is serious threats. We're dealing with extortion. Some cases we're dealing with gangs, if I can put it that way. And we've had to deploy, in some cases, heavily armed security. Central Line is one example of that. It's very unfortunate to see that, but that is what is required in terms of response to ensure that these projects are not compromised. We've got those vehicles that brings back memories of the pre-90s. We used to call it the Caspers, something to that effect. We've got those vehicles operating in our rail reserve to ensure that security is in place. The second part of that, and that is what we're starting to roll out now, is the issue of technology. To go along with the boots on the ground, over time, you'd see a reduction in that requirement in terms of the warm bodies because of the technology rollout. Here we are talking about your CCTV cameras, drone technology that we are going to be deploying, as well as smart detectors, your infrared and so forth within your corridors. Now, one of the main challenges we have had as PRASA is that our network is an open network. It's not a closed or secured network. You can walk into the rail system at any point along the network. You'll find there's no fencing, no walling in many cases. And I'll give you an example. Many of us is familiar with Gauteng, the Gautrain system. Much shorter network, but there is a closed network. It's completely closed. The only way you get access to that network is through your stations. PRASA is an open network. You can walk between stations, you can get onto the railway line, you can cross the railway line, you can access the station, not going through the station, but walking along the railway line. So one of the key things we are rolling out, Leanne, is also to, on the higher risk corridors, from a security point of view, is to wall these corridors. We've gone through many fencing technologies. It's not worked in the past. We have now got to a point where, in some of the cases, we are rolling out concrete walls with your cameras, obviously integrated with the environment. And in some cases, we're rolling out what we refer to as a military-grade fencing solution. Because the other technology we've used has been compromised in many of these cases. So security is something we're paying huge attention to. It's one of the things that I have discussed it with the minister, with the team at the department. We appreciate a lot of, the allocation that we have got. But going forward, there's even a greater requirement. An example, in the last year, our security budget has doubled. That is the reality. To ensure that we protect the assets. Security has doubled in the last year, and those are things that we are addressing going forward together with our shareholder and the National Department of Treasury to assist with some of these funding requirements.
I can only imagine how much that's going to cost to try and wall those areas. Kind of had Trump and Mexico come into my mind. But that's me being naughty. Abra, let's talk about it. What's your question?
Thanks, Leanne. I'm Abra Barbie of the SABC, and my questions are related to PRASA. You say that there is a sense of urgency. I appreciate everything that you said along those lines. And you mentioned something about 18 months, 12 to 18 months. Is there a time frame? Can you tell us, for instance, how long it will take to turn PRASA around? And then you said that people like Leanne, for instance, we all have a role to play in demonstrating the progress. And you speak about a sense of hope. Where's that sense of hope? Is it in the department?
Okay, let me start with your last question, if I may. That sense of hope and why this job is so rewarding from when you're bringing back rail. As soon as we launch a corridor and you've got the passengers on the train, and the minister is giving first-hand account of that interaction that we've had. And I think this is where I'm saying there's a role to play. Maybe when we launch again, Minister, some of the colleagues in this room that is asking the questions, to experience that firsthand. All the corridors, those 16 corridors that we have launched, the 13 this year and the 5 the year before, that is the hope I'm referring to. And that is, based on that hope, the excitement that we have launched corridors, it is rolling through to the rest of the network in terms of bringing back the other corridors. For us to be on those lines, to be on those services, particularly where we've managed to launch with the new trains, the blue trains, the sense of excitement, the sense of wanting more trains during the peak period, it is, and I'm not exaggerating, it is clear there on the faces of every commuter that is on the train. Every line that we have launched. We are now being, and this is where the acceleration is coming from, the urgency to bring back the other corridors. As I speak to you here now, and we can share that even offline, all of those other corridors that we've got, it's well advanced in terms of us making appointments for contractors to start work, to recover those. We need to, together with our stakeholder communications teams, we're out in the communities to communicate the recovery of these corridors. You've mentioned there's 18 Gauteng that we're bringing back. Here in the Western Cape, Central Line is our highest priority, but we need to get the line down to Strand. We need to get the line to Stellenbosch. And these ones are going to be starting this year. So the sense of hope that I'm referring to is one, where we have launched services, passengers have started to feel, experience the new service that is coming. And number two is starting to communicate the recovery of the remaining corridors that we are dealing with. So that's in terms of the hope that I'm referring to. Your first question, sorry. Yes. In terms of the turnaround process, as I've mentioned, rail unfortunately is not an overnight turnaround. Many of these capital interventions do take time. We've got time frames for each of these corridors. I can tell you that in this quarter, which ends in June, the end of June. Within June, we'll be bringing back Tembisa to Lerala. We've got time frames for all of this. Here in Capetown, you know, just the month of March, we opened the Nyanga line. We are targeting by December to get that section through Philippi. And I think the Minister was clear, some of the dependency we've got with the relocation on that. But these are the timelines we are talking about. Before the end of the year, we want Strand here in the Western Cape to be running. The same with Stellenbosch. So those timeframes are there. The one that I think is going to bring back, if I can call it, the full service, is highly dependent on the signaling system. And there we will be bringing it back corridor by corridor. Central line, we've already got an award to signalize that line. But there, that's when I'm referring to the 12 to 18 months to deal with those things. We will give, in terms of a breakdown, each corridor by corridor when that signaling system will be up and running. The one thing that I just do want to end off with is that earlier statistic that I've mentioned about the 600 million passengers per annum versus the 15. We need to get back to that number. Rail is not sustainable when we're moving 15 million passengers per annum. It's not a sustainable number. We need to move high volumes. We need to be getting it back to that number. That's why we require the signaling system. That's why we require the modernization of our network to bring back the captive and the choice users back onto our network. But again, that is why I'm referring to this 3-year period. We have indicated through our shareholder to National Treasury that there is a period that PRASA requires, if I can call it, funding support. Because I'm sure you can appreciate the revenue that we get from 600 million passengers versus the revenue from 15 million passengers. There's a huge deficit in terms of the funding support. Therefore, that period, the 3-year period to 5-year, in terms of building up those passenger numbers again, is critical on the operational funding. Capital funding is the commitment is there, we will be dealing with that. On the operational funding, while we recover, while we get back up to that 600 million passengers per annum and the revenue that goes with that, there's an element of support that PRASA would be requiring through that period.
Okay. I hate
Hi,
that we're
Leon.
stealing
Can
all
I
your
just
time.
ask a
Have I got
question?
another? Yeah. Sorry, where are we? There's 2 questions. Do you want to ask? Can I sneak in there quickly? Perhaps you want to also just, is this also to PRASA? Still to PRASA. Are you stealing the limelight this morning? You know those people's trains that the previous minister, Fikile Mbalula, said they'd be all operational. Every one of them would be operational at the end of this year, 2023. We're still on track. Is that going to happen?
Those are the ones we are running. We'll take you on a train later today.
2023, every one of them, will they be operational?
On the corridors that we are recovering,
Yeah?
we are running the blue trains.
Yeah.
There are some, I would say this, that we are running the yellow trains. And that's because we go through a process with the railway safety regulator to make sure that before we deploy and able to run these trains, all the checks and balances are in place. But the majority of the corridors we are running today, of those 18, is being run by the blue trains. And we've got the list.
Okay, next question.
Group CEO, I just want to get a clarity. There was a rail enforcement unit that was established here in the Western Cape. I just want to find out, are you going to reintroduce that unit? Secondly, you talked about walls. Are you going to build walls on the central line?
Okay. Just in terms of the railway enforcement unit, yes, you're correct. There was this partnership between PRASA, the city, and the province with these 100 enforcement officers. That one has lapsed. There's been further discussion looking in terms of reviving that. There were positives that came out of that process, particularly on the issue of intelligence gathering and so forth. So those discussions are ongoing to looking at how we deal with that. The issue of collaboration on security is a critical one. It's not only in terms of that, it's with our counterparts at Transnet, ESCOM, and so forth in terms of collaborating and getting the most out of a security strategy. So that is certainly something that we are looking into in terms of reviving in Cape Town specifically on the REU. The issue with regards to the walling on the central line, yes, we have done if you can call it a threat analysis on the central line. There are many sections that would be the concrete walling. And I've also been, when I've presented this before, you said it sounds like you are sounding like Trump. I've been told that before. But this was informed by a threat analysis where we need to do the concrete walling to protect the corridor. There are certain sections where we're doing the clear view fencing as an example. I'm calling clear view, which is the military grade fencing solution. And that we are looking at putting those contracts out within the month of May or early June. It should be out in the market to undertake the walling solution for Central Line.
DG, I know you are egging to speak, and I still want the word pothole to come up today in a big way. Because, CEO, I saw you were looking at your watch thinking, gosh, I'm getting away with everything today. Not yet, not yet. There is one more question that will be here. Prasa, I think. Can we switch the mic on? Looks like it's off. We got another mic there. Oh, let me walk there. Okay, here we go. I got a mic that works.
Good morning. It's Irma Venter from Engineering News. I've got a specific question on the public transport subsidy policy. I wondered when that will be published. And I know it was punted that minibus taxis will receive subsidies. Perhaps, can you just give us an update on whether that will indeed be the case, whether the minibus taxi system will be receiving subsidies from government under this policy? And then also your single ticketing system, where will that be piloted? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that I have a colleague there, Matabata Mukonyama, who's been enjoined to answer. I just wanted to deal with one aspect, Leanne, because in the main, PRASA CEO has been talking to our passenger rail. But there was a key element of the question you had asked earlier about goods being shifted from road to rail. And what I think needs to be taken on board there is that our sister entity Transnet, in the main, owns that network. And nationally, we've accepted that that network has, in fact, deteriorated. So you are not able to move the goods you mentioned back to rail. But what the work we're doing at the moment, and my colleague at DDG Rail would confirm this, in the past 2 years, we've now passed a national rail policy through which we aim to attract new investment onto rail, so that we have a master plan of where this rail should move, reinvest so that we're able to move back there. But if I may, with your permission, colleague Matabata, the questions on public transport, I hope we have a mic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Matata Mukonyama Saluda. Thanks, DJ. The public transport policy is now going through the cluster system on its way to cabinet, because it has got implications for both the economy and society at large. So we went through the economic cluster. We're going to go through the social cluster. It will be before cabinet before the end of June. And then that would be, if approved, would be approval for final public participation. And we hopefully by the end of the year, we should have a finalized policy. Now, the single ticketing system, insofar as our integrated public transport networks are concerned, we have already started 2 pilots, both in Rustenburg and in Polokwane. They are operating the initial phases of their IPTN systems. So that's where we are piloting the single ticketing system. This does not mean that you have other systems, for example, Gautrain's operating and PRASA also operating systems that are interoperable. At the end of the day, we're going to integrate all the systems so that seamlessly a passenger can go from one mode to the other. That is our end goal. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, the public transport, the key pillar of the subsidy is that we are targeting the user, irrespective of the mode that he or she uses. If he or she chooses to use taxi, then that portion of the subsidy or fare recovery that is contributed by government will then be enjoyed by the taxi operator. Of course, to some extent, you need to have a formalized taxi industry where you operate scheduled services and are able to calculate a rate per kilometer. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to move on now to PRASA, because I think we do need to get, sorry, Sanrail, because I think we've given PRASA a lot of attention, even though I think we've just touched the surface of that, but we don't have too much time to keep going. So I think we've got about 20 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where we're sort of looking in. I'm still going to take a lot more questions, but I think we need to look at the road network, because this is also a major part of everything right now. CEO, let's have a look at Sanrail. I mean, you've got a budget that the allocation is, I think, 24.4 billion. Is that what your budget has been? And the road infrastructure is in a very bad state. I mean, obviously, PRASA, we focused on that in a big while. I cannot say so much for the national roads, because the national roads are actually looking, the ones that I've been using, and I'm talking from a personal perspective, some of them they're absolutely fantastic. But the minute you peel off, it's a disaster. The potholes, we keep saying we're going to repair them, they're going to get better, they get patched, and then there's another disaster happening. I mean, I don't know about all of you, but certainly in the city of Johannesburg and when I stay, people are now shoving bricks into the potholes to try and assist the situation, which actually makes it worse, because then you get these sharp bricks banging out your tires. So people are trying to help themselves, but it's making it worse. So let's talk about the road, CEO. I'm going to ask you to, DG, if you don't mind just handing over the mic. There we go. And let's talk about the state of the roads at the moment.
Yeah, where do I start? Maybe I can say drive more of the national roads, but it's not going to help you. Because effectively, as the minister said, close to, 80%? Yeah, 79% of our network is gravel. And also, you do have a sizable amount of paved roads that belongs to provinces and metros. So you need to travel to that, and a significant amount of the population travels through that municipal and provincial network. Now, clearly, as I said, the philosophy for Sanral is maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. And we spend consistently just about 10 billion per annum on our network, just doing just that. We will rather not embark on new capital projects if we do not have enough budget to maintain. But we do not sacrifice maintenance. And that's a key operating philosophy. we realize that it's not the same approach that provinces and municipalities, some of them, follow. And I think together with our national colleagues, we are seeing how really as a system, as a total road system, we can assist with planning, we can assist with capacity building, and exchanging skills where required. You will notice that the allocation to provinces on the so-called Provincial Roads Maintenance Grant, PRMG, is 15.9 billion. Over the last 10 years, national government has transferred 106 billion to provinces on the same grant, provincial maintenance, roads maintenance grant. But clearly, we need to see more value for money. And I think that's really what keeps the DG and the minister and some of Sandral quite awake at how do we do that, especially in response to Operation Valasonke. We must also say that potholes are symptoms of breakdown in roads as well as maintenance philosophies. So when we're trying and address potholes, we are also looking at what else should we be strengthening across the network. So, initiatives such as inviting the private sector to contribute towards maintenance of roads through schemes such as Adopt a Road program, social responsibility initiative, CSI or CSIR, are things that Sandral is actively working on with National Department to try and get on board. Why are we doing that? Is we are receiving a lot of interest from mining companies and users of the roads, agricultural companies, for example, where in the Northern Cape, in Mpumalanga, the coal mining towns, and many other areas, the mining companies might help maintain the network in and around there, within the municipalities and provinces where they use that. In exchange, obviously, they have to get certain tax breaks and credits. That's where SARS comes in. So we are facilitating applications for that, so that at least we can expand capacity to maintain and manage roads in different districts. And we think that will go a long way, a long way. By way of example, we reckon if we were to allocate about 1,000 kilometers per district, we have 44 districts in the country. You're talking 44,000 kilometers that you can put in the hands of private sector that's well-funded, that will then help maintain. That's another Sandral. But Sandral deployed in the provinces and municipalities. So those are some of the initiatives. Now, Operation Valasonke, as we know it, really the public is able to report potholes through the apps that have been developed. The apps are able to tell us where are the hotspots, where are the potholes. Really the missing link which we are trying to solve is allocating maintenance teams to go and resolve those potholes within a very short time frame. And we are hoping that we will get to a solution soon. Within the Sandral network, every kilometer is allocated a routine road maintenance contractor. So we are able to know within a day, when a pothole is reported anywhere in the country within a Sandral network, we will know where, we will know who is the contractor that runs that road, and they must go and fix it. Within 48 hours, they must do a temporary fix, and within a week or so, they must do it. So we don't always get it right, but that's something that we want to help roll out across the countries in provinces and municipalities, in addition to attracting private sector through the necessary tax breaks that we are looking at. Unfortunately, we have limited skills, and as the minister keeps saying, the good roads must remain good across the national, the proclaimed national road. It is an important network to manage and maintain, but we acknowledge that road users see a road. They don't see provinces, municipalities, and Sandra. They see a road,
Yeah.
and that's what we have to contribute with what we know and our capabilities to resolve. Thank you.
And that's the reality. I don't think South Africans want to hear the blame game, because that's the reality, is that we drive on these every single days, and it's a major problem. I know that you had spoken, and it was about a week ago, about that fiscal cliff where you've basically reached it, and that there's no expanding, there's no, in terms of where you're at right now in your finances, and the fact that that there is now going to be a concerted effort to transfer the responsibility away. I think there's about 15,000 kilometers of road that is going to be transferred from municipalities and metros, if I'm not mistaken, under SANRAIL, because we do see that some of these, the national roads are not bad at all. The minute you get off them, that's where the problems start. This transfer, Minister or DG or you, I don't know who wants to take this, but this transfer, will this help? Will this manage? I mean, you talk about a 24-hour time frame. I mean, that's not, I've never seen that happen. But perhaps, again, I need to find out who manages my roads. That's another problem. So let's talk about the transfer of the management of the roads and the road network.
Yeah, sure. And I really need to say this very clearly. The central mandate is to manage 35,000 kilometers of roads. We are currently sitting at 23,500. That's a board and shareholder approved mandate for Sandra. We are short 11,000 kilometers that were already identified 10 years ago. The transfer comes from provinces. We know that the legislation is drafted such that the provinces must initiate the process of transfer. So part of the changes we are trying to look at in amending the Central Act is to make sure that we facilitate faster transfer. We don't leave it to the provinces to initiate. The network has been identified, it is known. It must then be transferred. It has taken a while, and I think with the Valazonke problem, it has now brought to light that the sooner we transfer, the better, because we are able to then embark on the same maintenance philosophies that the rest of the network enjoys. I must commend the Northern Cape, for example. Last year, by November, they transferred 952, I think, kilometers. A very significant amount of kilometers. That's 5% of Sandal's network, yeah? About 1,000 kilometers. What we have now done in the Western region, which is where that province is managed, we have immediately allocated 3 billion of upgrades and maintenance. 3 billion in this financial year. That is coming from the current budget to really get that network up to speed, up to the national standard. That's where transfers help, is that the minute they are the roads are transferred, we implement them within our budget, we identify the work that's required, and we think that some of the roads, especially in the economic active areas like mining and agriculture, which are suffering from potholes, might actually be candidates for transfer. And that will help with managing potholes. So it is within mandate. It is not something that is being forced upon us. It was long planned. It has to happen. In fact, we are begging, let me say we are begging provinces to fast track that transfer so that we can really just get on with the work that is required to upgrade the network. Thank you.
Indeed. Any questions from the floor, media? Any questions as yet? I think we're looking okay there. DG, are you happy? Is there anything you want to add in terms of the road infrastructure? And another issue which perhaps we need to, we spoke about it very much so in the beginning, and I know it's another responsibility, and that's not necessarily your issues. We're talking train, passenger rails, but you know, the goods that are being transported on the roads, the trucks, the delays, the accidents, the lives that are lost. I mean, these are major issues, Minister, as well, which I'm sure you can respect, that with the influx of trucks on our roads that are transporting the goods, this is hammering the networks in a very, very bad way. So I don't know if in your answer you want to also address that with regard to the road networks.
Yes. No, thanks, Leanne. I think I just wanted to add that recently Minister held the MINMEC. It's basically a meeting between the Minister and provincial MECs to look at this question of potholes. And the reality is this, Leanne, it is the owner of the road. There are 288 roads authorities. In other words, levels of our government that own roads. And what we've agreed there is to this standard that CEO Sandral is talking to, that if a pothole is reported, we must commit to clearing it within 14 days. But what it means is that the public has to know how to report, which is the app that we have at Sandral, to the relevant roads authority, if you're in a local municipality or the district and you own that road. So this is the work we've all committed to, and it's actually going to be accelerated as per our decision in MINMEC. I thought it's just important to highlight that. Indeed, it is true that there are levels of our network that are not properly funded. So for instance, a lot of our roads that are in the municipalities don't necessarily have a government allocation as you have in the provincial roads with the PRMG. I thought that's important. On the question of trucks on our road and inappropriate levels of our network, my colleagues in roads will be aware of the work we are doing here. The reality is, if you imagine the trucks that are going, for instance, to the port of Richards Bay and coming off the N2 and traveling on district and local roads, those roads were never designed for carry those axle loads. But the reality is, Leanne, what are you going to do? You're going to shut down those routes? Our sense is that we need to regulate which network they travel on while we're fixing the rail network. So that work, I'm sure you'll be hearing about it really at a policy level, so that firstly, we don't have trucks that are causing the accident that they're causing at the moment, or traveling on certain inappropriate levels of the network at the speeds and the actions that they do on the roads, overtaking and so on. So we are in fact wanting to issue certain directives that will enable us to regulate the environment in the meantime a bit better. Thanks.
Again, questions from the floor? I don't want to ignore you, just in case there is anybody out there. Minister, if you'd like to comment on anything there you've heard?
I think also on just that subject, Leanne, we now have a policy, national rail policy. And if we were to implement the national rail policy, all of us, we would probably move faster towards removing freight from road to rail. The policy calls for vertical separation of operators from owning the infrastructure of rail. And effectively, the policy calls on something such as what we have in the aviation, where we have AXA, but not being the operator. That's what the policy is saying, vertically separate these two. And if that was to happen, it would therefore allow operators to operate, like it is happening in the aviation, where AXA owns the airport infrastructure, where ATNS owns the airspace infrastructure, where SACA regulates. But the operators, it doesn't matter whether you are SAA, therefore state-owned, or privately owned. And that's what the policy is actually calling for. And if we were to implement that, then you would have an AXA in rail. You'd probably have a Sandral in rail. And then you have, if I have wagons, I go and apply, I get the slot, I operate. On an equal basis, if freight rail, Transnet, freight rail applies, get the slot, they operate. Anyone who's able to operate, that I believe would help us to move faster in ensuring that we are able to move cargo. Because if you look at the project that Sandral is running on the N3, they're extending and expanding the road. But for how long? The expenses that go with that, it's something that is serious, not sustainable. So I think if we were to implement the policies, the rail policy as it is, would probably move towards solving the problem. And I just want to say one thing on the vandalism, because I think we've got to talk about that. It's not animals, Leanne. It's not any lion, elephant, goat, cow that is vandalizing our infrastructure. It's us human beings. It's people that decide to go and vandalize. And I think it's a message that we need to send out there to say these things are costly and they belong to us, they help us. And when we vandalize them, to recover them, it's expensive. You know, this thing of you drive along the road, I mean, the N4, you know for sure that whenever there is no water around Wheatbank, then the road will burn. I'm talking about the national road. Expensive as it is, that is the destruction and the vandalism of infrastructure that is very expensive. It's not animals, it's not goats, not at all. So the point I'm trying to make is that probably we've got also to send out the message that says to our people, we're trying to recover this, we're trying to rebuild these things. Of course, we're going to try and secure them. But it's, as a matter of fact, it's not the commandate of PRASA, for instance. They're doing something that is costly for them, but it is, as a matter of fact, not their commandate. Their commandate is to provide trains and ensure that they are safe. The security part of it, even if you go to the Constitution, they're adding onto them the responsibility that is not theirs, and it's not free. But it's because we've become animals, worse than animals, as a matter of fact. And I think, for me, I just want to say that to say to South Africans, we can be better than animals. We can preserve what we have. We can ensure that the little that we have as a developing state is actually preserved, and we own it as South Africans. I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Minister. A question, it's a selfish question that I'm going to ask, and we've got about, well, is it fine? May I sort of get a thumbs up if we finish at 9:30? Is that okay? From the Department Minister, are you happy with that, guys? Are we happy finishing 9:30? Is that fine? So it gives us about 15 minutes, and then I'll also get some closing comments from all of our panelists of what we've heard so far today. But Minister, here's a question for you, and this is a Joburg question, and I'm not sure if it's an everybody else question. Let's talk load shedding. So we've spoken about potholes. Potholes is a big issue. Let's talk load shedding. I'm not going to ask you to find a solution for it, but what I am going to ask you is that it is having a massive effect on the deterioration as well of, and again, we're talking about the roads, but traffic lights are not working. They never get repaired. And the vandalizing of traffic lights. I mean, I don't know where this thing is coming from now, where people are chopping down the traffic lights and stealing everything. The road lights, I don't know, you guys come to Lanseria Airport. They've chopped down all of the lights heading to the airport, and they've stolen the infrastructure and the cabling inside this. This is ridiculous. But anyway, that is one issue. If you want to talk about it, you can go for it. But I know you're going to say it's someone else's responsibility. However, the issue of people directing the traffic at traffic lights, can we talk about that? Because I have seen in Johannesburg, when you're driving during load shedding, the guys that usually are begging on the side of the road, and bless them because they help the traffic flow, but this can't be legal, that we've got now beggars who are not qualified that are directing the traffic in all directions. Is this happening nationwide, or is this a Joburg issue? It's happening everywhere. And, you know, it takes that thing of South Africa alive with possibilities to another level. Not everyone can direct the traffic, surely. Who wants to grab this answer? Because how are we going to get this under control with the fact that you'll have traffic officers that are perhaps a road away doing something else, where you've got guys that are generally begging at the traffic lights, directing the traffic, trying to get South Africans to work on time? I don't know who, there are a lot of mics being passed around. No, you answer. No, you answer. Come on, who wants to take this one? Okay, so stand up. There we go. All right, let's get an answer. The illegalities on our roads at the moment.
Thank you, Leanne, Minister and the DG. It is actually illegal for any other person to direct traffic if he is not a traffic officer or a peace officer.
Can we speak a little louder or put the mic more to your mouth? There we go, better. Thank you.
It's actually illegal for any person other than a traffic officer or a peace officer to direct traffic, because they are the major causes of traffic, in a sense that they don't understand how the traffic flow should be conducted and should be dealt with. Yes, the public might feel that they are assisting, but the study that we're conducting proves to be negative, that those people are the major cause of the accidents that are happening at that point. In fact, we engaging municipalities and provinces. We will be coming with projects to remove them from the roads in a very nice way.
Why not train them? Why not train them? Create jobs.
Well, in the past the shareholder led by the minister, we've changed what we used to call traffic wardens, because the traffic wardens too, they were trained either for 3 months, but they would not be allowed to be police officers. We have now converted the training to 12 months. So those that the municipalities have identified as peace officers will be trained for 12 months. They then will be deployed in the roads, having full powers to summon, arrest, and issue summons.
All right. And I doubt anyone, 'cause you must see in Sandton they've even got white gloves. We laugh about it, but it is a big and worrisome issue that's taking place. Please.
Thank you, Leanne. I really wanted to bring to a close the previous question about road to rail, and generally the problem of freight in our country, which is critical to our economy. I think what's important, and maybe in the conversation we're leaving out a very important factor, which has got to do with an additional capacity to move freight, and that's air freight. The most efficient of them all, we operate on on-time performance of plus 90%. But in this current program, two things are happening. One is the National Department of Transport is currently finalizing an air freight strategy that will really give impetus to the implementation of air freight. One of the regular complaints that we have is that it's expensive. Sometimes the airports are inaccessible. But more importantly, we are also at AXA, as I indicated in our infrastructure program, going to implement cargo facilities, primarily in OR Tambo as our cargo hub. The minister in his speech acknowledged that OR Tambo has been awarded the best cargo airport in Africa. But one of the things that then further helps the road sector is to shift a lot of that cargo onto air freight, with both facilities and infrastructure built by the airports, but also just better regulation of how air freight moves. One of the issues is to also designate particular types of cargo onto air freight. And the argument would be lighter, fresh produce and cold chain. The argument would be pharmaceuticals, textiles, and basically high security, high value cargo that should be shifted onto freight. That work is currently happening right now. And again, whilst we sit with the roads problem, there would be an immediate shift to rail, but there's also going to be a shift to air freight as soon as that is implemented. I thought it was important to add that component and close the debate around the state of our roads, which can be better ameliorated by all of the sectors taking full responsibility and their load of freight onto the sectors. Recently, we've had a case, anecdotally, of blueberries being stuck at the port. Now, blueberry is the smallest fruit you can imagine. You wonder what it's doing in a truck when actually it should be in cold facilities, in an aircraft, delivered within hours of being harvested to the destination. And that's what we're all working very hard to deal with the road freight problem so that we can get our economy flowing. Thank you.
Is there, while we've got you, I mean, is there a time frame on that? Because that is a major solution and a quicker solution to the rail issues that we're going through right now.
Well, my understanding is the air freight strategy should be completed this year. And in the meantime, in parallel, as I had indicated, we who are responsible for the infrastructure are identifying, designating, and improving all of our cargo facilities domestically first. And as I indicated in my introduction, placing us in a position to serve the African continent. Our belief on the African continent as well is the African Continental Free Trade Area is not going to happen because ports take 10 years to build. Rail on the continent will take us 5 to 10 years to implement. So the aviation sector is ready. Airports have been developed on the continent. We probably are going to be the first solution provider in the interim whilst the whole heavy load haulage systems like ports are still under construction. So both domestically and continentally, there's a very important role for aviation and air cargo to actually unblock some of the challenges that are being faced. If you look at Beit Bridge and those problems that are faced in cross-border arrangements, you know that the solution immediately would lie in the area of air cargo. And that solution will start as soon as we get our permission by the regulator, the implementation of those cargo facilities in order to further unblock the challenges that we see. Thank you.
All right, I can see we're all sort of heading into the closing time about all of this, and I think to start wrapping, to get final closing comments as well. I know there are so many issues that we haven't touched on, but this would take all day, and certainly not the 2 hours that we were given, or just for the entire breakfast. The one issue, and Minister, you please feel free to pass this on to anybody else before we get the closing comments. And I think that's the taxi recapitalization issue. And I think we need to talk about that as well. The safety of our passengers and the taxi routes and where we are with all of that, because I think we need an update when it comes to the taxis operating on the road. Minister, do you want to grab a mic and perhaps maybe speak to that a little bit? Because I think that is the one issue as well that affects South Africans' lives, the majority of South Africans' lives.
I will come after the DG Matabat, then I'll make my comments.
DG?
Thank you once again, Minister. Thanks for the question, Leon. In terms of the tax recapitalization, since it started in 2007, we've scrapped over 82,000 taxis. We want to believe, the study we've done is that there is still about 15,000 out there. And those are your old, so-called old CIRs, E20s, and the rest. The challenge we are having is that the uptake has now gone down a little bit, and there are a number of reasons for that. One of the reasons is that the amount we pay for scrapping allowance is now no longer enough because the price of new vehicles has gone up. Where we used to meet them like 25% or halfway, we now pay them about 149,000, and the price of a new taxi is 1 million, it's around up to 1 million. Now that is the reason why there is now no longer appetite. But because we want to get rid of all the unsafe taxis on our roads, one of the issues that is in the speech of the minister is that we need to discuss and come up with a cut-off date for all old, unsafe, and unroadworthy vehicles to be brought in to be scrapped so that they are now once and for all removed from our roads. But as a program, the taxi recap program is not only about scrapping. There are quite a number of other benefits for the taxi industry. For example, the same entity of scrapping, we want the taxi industry to own 60% thereof going forward so that they run their affairs. And then government regulates cut-off dates and ensure that they're now only safe TRP compliant vehicles on the roads. I think that's all I can say about it. Thanks.
Okay, I think let's get a wrap from everybody and sort of just to round it up. A lot of things were said. Perhaps maybe we'll start off with our CEOs, the DG, and then Minister, you can close this all up for us. We'll get you up to close everything for us. So, CEO, let's go.
Thank you very much. I think I've covered quite a bit in terms of our commuter rail. Maybe in this last 2 minutes, I've got just to touch on some of the other mandates of PRASA. We've also got the long distance rail network, MLPS, Shosholoza Mail, that we've also need to revitalize and modernize. Currently, the system and I'm referring here to the rolling stock as very much reached the end of its lifespan. This is your locomotives and your coaches. The reason that you see a very limited service at the moment, we're only running Johannesburg to East London and Johannesburg to Musina. We get the questions often when we're doing Cape Town, Johannesburg, Cape Town, when you're running to Durban. As a matter of interest, we are doing the Comrades train beginning of June. We're running a special train. So there's a focus in terms of the revitalization of MLPS, but here a critical one also goes back to the importance of our sister company Transnet, and also the impact with freight is we rely heavily on the Transnet network to operate long distance rail. Minister, you made the point about maybe the restructuring on some of these things. But therefore, even that network, the upgrade of that is critical to enable PRASA to run more effective and efficient long-distance rail services. The second one I want to raise is we've also got the mandate to run long-distance bus services, which doesn't always get the elevation that the other areas do get. And this is typically your city-to-city buses. That's a process that we're dealing with in terms of a business rescue process. We've got the plan in place to look at over the next 3 years to bring this back to a sustainable business, self-sustaining business. And we can share more on that at the end of this meeting with those that are interested in that. The third one I want to raise, and this is our secondary mandate at PRASA, and that is to generate revenue income from our assets. Typically, we've got quite a huge property portfolio. We've got the issue of fiber and so forth. And it's one area, especially now, what I've picked up in terms of our revenue challenges, a concerted effort to look at how, through the secondary mandate, we look at some of these revenue generation activities. Number of developments that we are dealing with. For those of you that are from Cape Town, if you look at Cape Town Station, that massive development going up there, it's one of those developments that I'm referring to. 21-story building. We're looking at student accommodation, 7,000 square meters of retail that's going up. And we're doing that at some of our flagship stations. And that's to look at how do we generate revenue to supplement some of the shortages that we have got going forward. So I think I just wanted to mention that as part of our mandate beyond just commuter rail. I've shared with you the plans, the corridors that we are bringing back, and the modernization in my earlier remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leon. Just to close off, I think one of the areas I'd like to share is the success story of AXA's recovery. The minister in a budget speech referred to a 5.7 billion revenue that's anticipated to be generated by AXA in this current financial year. I must indicate that we were at 5.3 billion in the previous year that we closed off. And I'm happy to indicate that subject to audit, we're going to definitely break even, but more importantly, also come out profitable this year. So that's a very good achievement. And in a sense, that gives us a very clear mandate to proceed with the investment, both in our infrastructure and expand our services. One of the areas we're looking at is just being further integrated into the other transport modes. So we have what we call a passenger facilitation and CASI strategy. That's really about looking at making airports the center, economic center and transport hubs in those areas. But more importantly, undo what was deliberately designed as to prohibiting the townships that surround us from accessing airports. We're also looking at opportunities for developing that integration and making airports extremely accessible. The last time we did an assessment, we found very simply that a bus ticket from Joburg to Durban is even more expensive in certain instances than an affordable airline on the same base, and yet you take 1 hour and you subject passengers to a 12-hour drive. So that competitiveness of the aviation sector, with the airlines stabilizing, I must say the one thing that stands between the airlines and full stabilization and full operation and affordability of passenger tickets is still the issues of availability of aircraft and the airlines investing in that. They're doing that slowly and they're increasing their fleet. But secondly, is an issue that is totally beyond our control, which is the price of jet fuel and the availability of jet fuel, which means the ticket price is basically impacted on by 30% by just the price of fuel. So that's quite an important factor. Every time you see the oil price increase, know it's going to almost directly impact on the passenger ticket. So by definition, Airports Company South Africa is well positioned to take its responsibility of providing full air transport services. I normally use the anecdote, South Africa is a big country. We are 3 times Germany or 3 times the size of France. We are 5 times the size of United Kingdom. We subject passengers to 12-hour drives in our country, which we shouldn't. By definition, the improvement of air transport services would mean that for those long distances, air transport should be the obvious choice at an affordable level with functioning airports, with our people able to travel. And finally, we are a migratory country. Most people come from outside of Gauteng, and in December, the illustration is very clear. Everybody goes back home. And by definition, with that system, it actually requires us to service those trends by ensuring passengers can undertake those journeys, which most countries don't, but ours is unique, undertake those journeys affordably with safe, on-time performance, and are able to actually meet their requirements. Thank you.
Thanks very much, CEO. Shall we go to you, and then we'll get ATNS? Is that, yes, as well, some closing. So very quickly just there, and then I'll come to you, DG, and then of course the Minister to wrap it all up.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne, for this exciting opportunity to talk through the transport portfolio. I think a few messages. One is, in terms of our mandate, as I indicated, we want to get to 35,000 kilometers, and we therefore urge and encourage provinces to really reassess where they are and make the necessary applications to transfer the network that has been identified to SANRA. Secondly, of course, as part of the national government, we are always available to provide capacity and support, and also to be implementation agents for certain projects for municipalities as well as for provinces. And we do this via memorandum of agreements or memorandum of understandings, where we can really go in at their cost and provide that capacity or specific skills. Again, I would like to encourage those who would like to explore working with us, either through the national government or directly to us to do that. The third one is on private sector. I indicated we are looking at this Adopt a Road as well as social responsibility initiatives. Just making a call out to those really significant users of roads, such as mining companies, to also reach out to us if this is an area of interest that we can start discussing how we can partner on those initiatives. The fourth one will be to the public. The Vala Zonke apps are available in Android as well as what is the other store? The Apple Store for download. I think keep reporting those potholes. What it is also helping us is it is helping us consolidate and identify roads that are troublesome, hotspot areas, and even hotspot areas in terms of municipalities or provinces, because that allows us to say to the minister, look at this map, look at where it is red hot. Maybe perhaps there's something systematically broken there that we need to go and investigate outside of a single pothole or two. So I encourage you to do that. I think the fifth one will be transport works as an integrated system. As Sispumi said, the different modes, aviation, freight, and all of that. In South Africa, it can only work like that. We're still far from a system where you can take just outside of your door to work and back using one mode of transport, conveniently so. So recognizing that roads are usually the last mile of connection for different modes of transport, Sandral is embarking on this provincialization strategy, where we want to get closer to the provinces, locate our offices there. We currently have 4 regional offices plus head office. So we want to really get closer to each province and have a presence there so that we can better able to manage them. I think lastly, just to say thank you to the minister and ministry staff for the support that they continue to provide to us and the leadership, DG and DDG Slavisa for roads. Thank you for all the support. I think, and of course, to the board of Sandral, led by my chairman is sitting there, making sure that we keep on delivering all the time. And lastly, the rest of our management and staff, a lot of them stakeholder affairs are around here. That really keep us doing the good work that we do. And of course, to all South Africans for the support. Thank you.
Thanks, CEO. All right, final, just from one of our final CEO closing comments.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity. As I indicated earlier, our responsibility for airspace management or air traffic management is quite important. For the past 30 years, we've been able to provide safe and cost-effective and reliable airspace or air traffic management, and we'll continue to do so. This is our 30th anniversary of doing so. We were established in 1993. We will continue in ensuring that we work together with various institutions, particularly in the SMME space, to develop those capabilities within South Africa to ensure that at least we're able to deploy those technologies that are being developed and manufactured outside of the country, but we're able to do so. That is our plan as part of our social and relationship capital. When it comes to our financial sustainability, as I said, our growth is focusing on non-regulated business, but it also focusing on growth in terms of our opportunities within the continent. We will continue to deploy the technologies that will help us to deliver safe operations, but also to make a significant presence in the continent, particularly when it comes to visit or communication systems that we have deployed. As I indicated earlier, that we've got 14 that are NAFISAT in East Africa as well as North Africa, and in SADC, which is VSAT, we've got 15 countries that are we have a relationship with. So all in all, we've got about 29 countries that we have been able to deploy communication systems outside of the continent. We will continue to ensure that in terms of our human capital, we are able to develop the capabilities within the organization that will help us to leap into the spaces and the areas that we want to participate in. It is also important that we keep close focus on our environment sustainability when it comes to how we ensure that we hold our users of this airspace accountable for environmental sustainability. Because if we don't do that, we will not be able to bring the changes that are required when it comes to climate change, when it comes to the environmental sustainability targets that we have that are also defined by ICAO, but also by KENZO. It is also important that we ensure that we share with you that within the past 30 years, as I said, we've been able to provide safe communication system in the 6.1% of the airspace, the world airspace that we also manage, that were assigned by ICAO to manage. So all in all, as ATNS, we'll definitely continue in those focus areas that I've highlighted: financial sustainability, environmental sustainability, manufactured capital that focuses on the technologies that need to be deployed in the country, human capital, social and relationship capital that we also need to ensure that we improve on, including the research, development, and innovation, because that's where we're able to identify opportunities of technologies. Currently, we're looking at opportunities for virtual towers to be able to operate our towers virtually, so that we're able to deploy and ensure that we improve on our safe and efficiencies in terms of our communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And it's such an exciting space to be in. Really, it is. And I remember as a program many years back, we actually came into one of the control towers to actually look at the air traffic control and how it works and the job opportunities that are available there. And it's a very fascinating space. It really is. Okay, let's wrap it up. So our final closing statement, DG, if you'd like to sort of wrap, this is your budget at the end of the day. So let's put it there, and then the minister, we leave it to you to wrap the entire panel up for us.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Leanne. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I thought mine is really just to acknowledge, Leanne, that we are not unaware, being charged with leading the transport sector, that we are in fact in challenging times in this sector. But I thought one wouldn't want to leave this platform with an impression that we are daunted. Coming out of the decimation of COVID, whether it's our entities or the infrastructure, I think the sense we are getting is that we're coming out. And I would want to say what the CEO has referred to. I mean, the biggest bugbear we have in this country, across our country, is the potholes. So we must, in fact, reinforce that all across the country, our citizens must continue reporting, and ours as transport family is to ensure that the war room works and it gives the turnarounds that we've signed off with the president. I thought that is one important thing. Of course, in all the other sectors, as my colleagues here have said, the CEOs, we're looking at the balance sheets, we're looking at the numbers and looking for positive movement forward. There are big challenges. But I thought also it's important to still urge the likes of yourself and your colleagues to say, when we do these recoveries, because sometimes we take for granted recovery from what? The extent of the decimation. When you really go on a train ride and engage with the people, we can report that. It's better done by people who are in your space. And I would have laughed that we work on that homework there together, we do it together. But we want to thank you for this opportunity this morning to engage on the budget vote. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, DG. All right, Minister, you can sit and close, stand and close, whatever you feel comfortable doing, go for it. Thanks, Minister.
No, thank you very much, Leanne. I think our focus today has been on rail, road, aviation, and public transport as well. But we are still responsible for maritime, and it's an economy of its own. We're responsible for the huge waters that are made up by Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and the Southern Ocean, the size of which is actually 3 times the size of South Africa. And anything that happens in those waters in terms of safety, we are responsible for that as the Department of Transport. But the economy that we've not tapped into it as we're supposed to as a country, but it's a topic on its own that probably we could have spoken about. Leanne, we do have challenges that we cannot run away from. And obviously just in front of us will be the potholes. It will be the state of some rain in some areas, even if we're trying to recover that. Those are the challenges we have. But there are also good things that I think as a country we should appreciate. The very fact that we have our national roads comparing very well with the best roads in the world in terms of their state and everything, I think it's something that we should be appreciating. That we have airports that on a continuous basis rate #1 by far in the continent and compare very well at an international level. Top 100 airports, that's where the 3 airports belong, our airports belong, and as a matter of fact can even improve for that matter. Out of, if you want, not anything less than 5,000 airports. If you talk about the international, they can be 45,000 plus airports in the world. We're in the top 100. It's something that we can appreciate. And with our hotels at our airports also rating as this is in South Africa, it belongs to us. It's about us, and we can appreciate that. And if you go to other areas that we have not spoken about. Whenever petrol rises, people call for RAF levy to be removed. As a matter of fact, in South Africa, we have an insurance that we don't pay for direct. That is RAF. They will argue about that, the issues and so on, but it's fun. I just want to put it carelessly like that. And it's a careless way of putting it, I must emphasize. But if I'm in an accident or I knock your child, you don't come to me and claim from me. You go to Road Accident Fund and you claim from Road Accident Fund. That is in a way protecting you or me who's actually caused an accident. So it compensates you even if it is me who, whether careless or in whatever way, the RAF will be there to compensate you. If RAF was not there, some houses would have been closed today. The taxi industry, for instance, with all the accidents, I'm making an example, where you have 15 people dying, the owner of that taxi will not operate the following day, even if he may have had 80 taxis, because we would go and actually take all the taxis if people were to do that. That is another good story that we can talk about in South Africa. They've actually spoken, the academy that is training ATCs, that air traffic controllers, is a state-owned academy. It belongs to ATNS. It's rated as one of the best in the world. The former president of ICAO was trained in that academy. And it actually tells of the capacity and the good that we have in South Africa. The people that are sitting here in front of me, and some seated there as CEOs, all of them are educated people. Don't worry, it can't be me only who's not, but the rest of them. And they are products of South Africa. The bridges that we are building, Sikaba, the highest bridge in the continent, that should attract tourism. People should want to go and see it as it is being constructed. The bridge in Mtentu, that is the longest in Africa. The tunnel that I visited, the Huguenot Tunnel, that is 3.9 kilometers long, and that will be building and constructing in the near future. It's something that is good for South Africa. That is a story that we can tell about ourselves, and then encourage people to come and witness these things, to come, the engineers of the world, to come and see a country such as South Africa building such a bridge in the middle of nowhere. And I think these are the things that we probably can talk about so that we attract even tourism to come to South Africa. And that, I'm not saying we don't have challenges. We do, but we do have other things that I think are working for South Africa. I thank you very much.
Minister, thank you. And thank you so much to the rest of the team for availing themselves for us today. And thanks so much for all of your patience, everybody, as we've gone through quite a bit, and as you've heard, just touching on the surface. We basically done, but if I'm not mistaken, there is a vote of thanks that needs to be given. I think it's by the Director General, but I think, Director General, you, Advocate Mlau, I'm not sure if you want to give the vote of thanks or if you're sort of happy that everything is kind of done. Would you like to do a vote of thanks, Advocate, or are you? Your mic is gone, I know, the mic deficiency.
No, Leanne, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, no, mine is really just to actually thank you for facilitating this session, especially, but also for all your colleagues in the media. I alluded earlier that some of the work we do in this challenging sector actually wouldn't have any erring. It wouldn't reach the ordinary public, but for your efforts. So even as you engage and you ask the questions for the public, we are very much appreciative of your role and the critical role it plays in making hope real. Because what we need to do in this country is to make hope real, particularly for our vulnerable in this challenging time. So Leanne and all our colleagues, the CEOs, the chairs who are here, family transport, and those who hosted us yesterday in our brief post-budget dinner, colleagues from Gibela, we want to thank you especially, but thank you very much for this morning. I must thank my minister and colleagues here for the answers that we have given and engaged. We are open to engage, and we hope that the transport sector will serve South Africa better going forward. Thank you very much.
DG, thank you very, very much, and thanks to all of you for availing yourselves. So I've told you that there is a hot breakfast. It is served. Apparently, it's ready for you. But if we can allow just the minister and the rest of the CEOs and the DG and the main table to help themselves first, and then the rest of us will go in. So you've worked for it. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful morning, and thank you so much for coming. Minister and everyone else, please help yourselves.